Great.
Take it away,
So
Ashley.
my name's Ashley McClure, and I can hardly believe I have the pleasure of, of introducing someone I don't think actually needs introduction, Mr. Bill McKibben, who is graciously joining us for the first half hour from Vermont. Is that right, Bill?
Indeed it is.
Okay. So as everybody I'm sure knows, he's an author, environmentalist. He's been awarded what's known as the Alternative Nobel, the Right Livelihood Prize. His book from 1989, The End of Nature, is regarded as the first book for a general audience about climate change, and founder of 350.org. The Boston Globe said he's probably America's most important environmentalist, which is my impression. So we've asked him to join today to kind of share your thoughts. Originally, it was about kind of the optimal way for a U.S. health professional-led divestment campaign for healthcare institutions, like your advice on our campaign strategy and how to align our divestment strategy with the broader divestment campaign that you're really one of the main leaders of. But then COVID happened and all these relief packages. So we also kind of want to introduce, discuss that. So I think my first question that we would love to hear your thoughts on is, in this unprecedented context of kind of the stimulus packages that are coming out, how would you see the health community kind of maximally supporting the things that are coming out, like the 5 principles for just COVID-19 relief and stimulus, the people's bailout, that kind of thing? How would you see us, what would the best role you would see us playing be?
Well, I got to tell you the truth. I think that the train is moving so fast right now in DC around stimulus and bailout and things, that the ability of any of us to have too much impact on the outcome is small. At least the first big $2 trillion round of this is going to be done by the end of the day. And, we all scrambled hard over the weekend and did what we could, but it's not very good for a mix of bad reasons on the side of the Trump administration and sort of good reasons on the side of the Democrats who are just trying to get anything out before everything collapsed. It's a pretty, it did not seize the opportunities it could have. There's quite possible that there'll be a lot more bailing out going on, and I think it's a very good idea to be in touch with political leaders of all kinds, pointing out that it's just ridiculous to set up the pins in the bowling alley again, instead of taking the time and the opportunity to use this to make some real changes. I think some of the stuff that got done, and no one's seen the final drafts, there seem to have been at least some half decent stuff that got done with the airline portion of the bailout. We'll see. But for the most part, this is one of these events that we're going to have, that our ability to influence is going to come, I think, will develop more as the weeks go on. Which, right now we're very much in the,
Guys, if you're not muted, please mute yourself. Thanks.
Right now, to use the I guess correct analogy, we're very much in the emergency room phase of this crisis, and we haven't moved into the occupational therapy phase that will one hopes follow. So, but I do think that it's super important to be thinking about the kind of lessons that we should be taking from this moment in the broadest sense. And probably the single most important of them, and it seems trite, but I think it's the thing that really matters, is to be reminding people all around us that this is a confirmation that reality is actually real. That is, that you can't actually negotiate or spin or compromise with biology in this case, and you can't do it with chemistry or physics in the case of climate change.
Right.
And if that message gets through, that's probably the single most important that can happen. I guess the other thing that would be really useful to get through as it relates to the climate crisis is this should be teaching us a lot about timing of response, and how much easier it is to do things fast and at the beginning than wait for problems to accelerate. And I think medical professionals are particularly well positioned to point out the tragic differences in the response between, say, South Korea and the United States, both of which recorded their first case of coronavirus on the same day. And South Korea went right to work. And now they're looking at the thing in the rearview mirror, more or less. And the US did not. And now we've got months ahead of us. That's precisely analogous to what we did around climate change.
Mm-hmm.
When we had 30 years ago, could have taken fairly modest steps that would have put us on a completely different trajectory, and instead didn't. And now we're in the place when we have to take large and disruptive steps in order to deal with something that's become a careening crisis. So those are the sort of things that strike me about how to think about climate in the context of the current moment.
Yeah. So so now that we are in the late moment that we are, is there any opportunity that you have kind of seen for the health community to be a part of the climate narrative, climate solutions that we're not already seizing?
Well, I think that the divestment thing is the perfect vehicle, actually.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Look, one of the things that's going to happen from coronavirus is that the health professions are going to come out of this with enhanced credibility and prestige. Already, doctors and nurses are very high among people that people are willing to listen to in our society. In a society where we're basically not willing to listen to anybody anymore, doctors and nurses retain a certain kind of credibility.
Mm-hmm.
And most doctors and nurses or many of them anyway, are attached to large institutions with large connections to large pots of money. And those pots of money at the moment are far from solving the crisis. They're making it worse.
Yeah.
Absurdly so. I mean, the illogic at this point of investing in the fossil fuel industry is not just the moral illogic that's been clear for the last decade, but at this point it's also become financial illogic. It's turned out to be, over the last 5 years, and especially over the last 5 weeks, an unbelievably good way to lose huge sums of money at a time when we don't really have huge sums of money to lose. So, thinking about the Harvards of the world, the Stanfords of the world, I mean, this is a place where, voices raised, over the next few months will be extraordinarily powerful. I got to do grand rounds at Brigham and Women's in, I don't know, sometime in the course of the winter. And it was very powerful to see just how many people there were instantly willing to go to work on this problem. And I know, talking to people at the Harvard administration, that their voices were heard immediately and clearly, that it freaked them out a little bit, that it wasn't just undergraduates over in Harvard Yard who were carrying on about divestment, but people in what they think of as the most serious precincts of the university who were really starting to call them to account. And calling them to account, on the grounds that at this point, it's incredibly clear that the climate crisis has become, coronavirus aside, the greatest public health challenge that we're ever going to face. I mean, you don't need me to run the endless series of numbers for you. You can't have a world where, 1 billion people are climate refugees, where people are having to, where the temperature is through the roof, where humidity is through the roof, without causing the most extreme and ongoing and repeated health crises. And so just saying that over and over again, just saying we do not want to be part of contributing to the system that's making it that difficult to carry on our work is really important. I think that sometimes that's the thing about we don't do a good enough job of leveraging the credibility that comes from the professions that we engage in. I find this with lots of, I'll give you an odd analogy. I work a lot, there's a big faith-based divestment movement and a big faith-based environmental movement or all that. And I have to remind them over and over again that we don't really need them, producing scientific documents or manifestos or whatever. The reason that they're valuable is precisely because of their faith connection. So what they need to talk about that will through is, why, how does my belief in Jesus lead me to respond to this? Because that's what people will hear from them.
Yeah.
And for doctors, we really need people saying, this is a health crisis, another health crisis, and we're not going to let you just keep setting up these crises one after another, because among other things, we're the ones who have to go deal with them once you've done it. I think a little anger is okay here.
Yeah, and is coming up. So that's useful to channel. I know it's a strange thing for health professionals now to be, we always talk about frontline communities, like next to fossil fuel extraction and production, but now it's this other frontline, which is more complicated.
Yes, and just to reemphasize the point one more time, since people are going to be very fixated on the coronavirus thing for a little while, I think one of the ways to just keep articulating it is, this is a crisis, within the context of a larger crisis, and pay attention. Don't drift back into, don't just go back to normal. Let's try to actually deal with what's coming at us. People can hear that message from medical people almost better than they can hear it from anybody else. They really are the only people in our society who are allowed to give us bad news of any kind, So,
Okay.
it's a moment.
So you do see divestment, healthcare divestment, as you would say the most useful thing the health voice could be bringing to the climate discussion. Is that right? Or are there others?
So, there's plenty of things to bring to the discussion, and to continue to talk about public health and bring the point home and all of that's really important. But in terms of leverage, in terms of, how you can help make change happen fast, I think it's pretty clear at this point that divestment has emerged. Divestment, especially if it's tied to the kind of larger work that's now going on the larger financial institutions too, the JP Morgan Chases of the world and the Black Rocks and things. It's way higher leverage tool than we thought it was when we started it 7 or 8 years ago now, I guess. Honestly, we didn't know how well it was going to work. And the basic thought was, here's a way that we can at least sort of take away the social license of these companies. It's a way to make people understand that they have 5 times as much carbon in their reserves as anybody thinks they can burn, and on and on and on. So useful in that way. But frankly, we didn't think we could grow it quickly enough to the place where it would have a huge economic impact. We were wrong. We're now at $12 trillion worth of endowments and portfolios, and it's having a huge impact. Shell last year in their annual report said it had become a material risk to their business. Last week, the National Mining Association wrote to Congress demanding a bailout for coal miners. And their basic point, which they quite explicitly said, was divestment had made it impossible for them to raise new money.
Wow.
And so it turns out to be a super high leverage tool. These guys are financially constrained. They can't go on expanding unless they can access, cheap capital. And we can deprive them of a lot of that. I really do think that there's probably been nothing that's managed to change the debate more. Well, the other thing that's managed to change the debate very powerfully is the precipitous drop in the price of renewable energy. And so, your brothers and sisters over in the engineering labs have done a great job. And the fact that a solar panel is 90% cheaper than it was a decade ago gives us, that's the other half of this that we needed. Because if there wasn't some alternative to point people to, then it would, but by itself, that doesn't accomplish what needs doing. The transition that will happen on economic grounds alone is way too slow to catch up with the physics of climate change. So our job is to be the kind of the other side of this vice here that's closing in on the fossil fuel industry.
So, so that, so does the current moment of like green stimulus, and like you said, this is probably the first of many bailouts, does this, and there's also kind of, I think very importantly, the notion of divest, invest. How will this moment of kind of, I've actually even heard the California Green New Deal efforts, they're thinking of renaming themselves as like the green relief something. So just kind of, folding the Green New Deal and to me, which really is the notion of invest. How do you see that, if you do, changing the divestment movement in the direction to go in?
So that's a very good question. And because divestment started out mostly as a sort of negative, hammer, which is important, because that's, even if that's all we did, that would be extremely useful, because if you create a vacuum, the thing that's going to fill that vacuum is going to be renewable energy at this point. It's cheap. But we can go further than that. And the good news is that, the Green New Deal is weirdly a direct outgrowth of the divestment thing, because it's all the kids who graduated from the campus divestment movement who went on to form this Sunrise project that wrote the Green New Deal and recruited AOC and all of that. Varshini Prakash, who's a dear friend, who's the 24-year-old or something executive director of the Sunrise Project and the Green New Deal, she was the person who got UMass Amherst to divest from fossil fuel.
I didn't know that.
All of them. I mean, literally to a person, that's where they came from. So it's definitely happening, but that's a different set of actors that one's appealing to, right? So you do need to go out and work hard on politics in order to make that happen. That's not something that's going to happen by pressuring, Harvard and Stanford and Baylor and, whoever else. That's a different set of actors. They're very linked, because anything that reduces the political power of the fossil fuel industry, and divestment is the best tool we have for that, anything that can break their political power makes it much, much easier to then do things like pass the Green New Deal. So one is not a substitute for the other. We work hand in hand on all of this. In fact, at the beginning of the year, or middle of last year, I sat down with the people at Sunrise and just said, right, for the time being, you guys are doing a great job on all the political stuff. You deal with that, and a bunch of the rest of us will be trying to keep dealing with the financial stuff. I think the way to think about it is maybe that there are two levers of power in the world. One of them is political, one of them is financial. They're linked, but they're not, they're also separate from each other, and we can attack them separately. And, so that's why working so hard on the Chase Banks and the BlackRocks and the Liberty Mutuals and as well as the oil companies. We have to take down some of their power in order to give the Green New Deal guys a fighting chance.
Got it.
It could be very much something that comes out of this. I mean, the best case scenario, again, is what's happening in South Korea, where the government, as their economic recovery plan, has put forward a sweeping South Korean Green New Deal.
Huh, I hadn't heard that. Okay, so a question from some of our audience. So many environmental groups are suggesting that climate activists right now don't write op-eds or letters to the editors about climate right now. What divestment actions do you see as being like best timed for the next couple of months ahead?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to play it by ear in your community and where you're going on. Like, no one in New York City can pay any attention this week to anything other than, how you get enough, ventilators to keep, everybody from dying. And that may be happening elsewhere and whatever. But that doesn't mean that I don't think there's something offensive about the idea of people saying, look, we're going to have to solve a bunch of crises if we're going to make the world the kind of place we want it. And here we go. Here's something we can be working on. So, everybody's suspended all the kind of protest and demonstration for obvious reasons, but everybody's doing a lot of work online and a lot of work, that kind.
And then I know we just want to respect your time, so we have 7 minutes. If anybody has questions, please write them in the chat, and I'll do my best to reply.
I see one of the ones from Cynthia Mahoney. I think it's much more important to get institutions to divest rather than get individuals changing their portfolios, just because that doesn't register in public the way that, it's fine to do and important to do, and you'll make it if you get out of fossil fuel. But what we really need are brand names saying we're out of this business. That's why, that's why that's so important right now. I think that I'm looking at some of these other questions in the chat here.
Yeah, if I could pull out, especially the one from Todd Sack, who's with us, and he actually wrote the resolution for the American Medical Association calling for divestment. And his question is, how would you see us best leveraging the AMA's divestment statement to influence? Is that DC, Todd?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's really important to use it to try and influence DC, but I think it's more important to use it to try and influence in the interim these other intermediary institutions. It's such a powerful statement, and in fact, they're now, a lot of medical associations, others have joined in. That's why, but that's, the biggest blockages right now, the place where we're having, and it's beginning to crumble, but it's the Harvards of the world that are the real, the sort of absolute centers of the establishment. And they listen to people like the AMA, because everybody knows that the AMA is not exactly profoundly progressive institution in its, all its dealings with the world. So that makes it all the more powerful that it's willing to be outspoken here. This is the kind of thing to be, and this is the kind of thing that we can't do right at the moment, but when the crisis passes, it's the, precisely the reason why it would be great to have a delegation of, 100 people in white lab coats presenting that to the president of Harvard and Stanford and wherever else. That's how, DC is wired not to change. It's extremely difficult to get things to happen given the current political alignments in DC. That doesn't mean we can't make change, because there's lots of other power in the world. That's why we spend so much time on this financial fight here. So that'd be a great place. Institutions like Schwab are creating, I'm looking at these other questions, more low-cost, easy divestment options, keep pushing them to do it. That's something you can do individually. It's very effective. BlackRock made very powerful statement after a serious campaign earlier this winter. BlackRock's the biggest, they're the 600-pound gorilla. So it's really important to keep pushing BlackRock and others to provide just those kind of things.
Okay.
I see Brian asking what progress towards getting local governments and things to divest. It's continuing, and we have some big wins, you know, New York City, the whole country of Ireland, on and on and on. But it's a place where people are super slow and super stuck in changing, for those of you in New York State, the big fight at the moment is to get Albany to do this with the New York State Pension Fund. And I think we're very close. And anybody who has any way to send a letter to the state treasurer, Tom DiNapoli, or to talk to your local assembly people who are about to advance a bill, it would be very, very useful.
If I could pull out one other question and then just ask. So one question from Dr. Linda Rudolph, which is a little different of a theme, sort of. What can we do to pressure Democratic Party candidates to prioritize climate change as a top issue in the election?
Yeah, well, so this has been very effective this year, mostly because that's what we worked on all year. We have to make them all climate change candidates. And I mean, the Democratic primary ended up in a weird way, obviously, a kind of unexpected, this sort of Biden thing at the end and whatever. But the good news is, and I can say this, having helped write the Democratic Party platform last time at Bernie's behest, I was one of the 5 people that he named to go help write the platform. Even Biden and people are well to the left of where the party was on this 4 years ago. I think we've done a good job. And I think the reason we've done a good job is because poll after poll showed that either the number 1 or number 2 issue for Democratic voters in state after state was climate change. And I think it's going to be a huge issue in the fall election because it's one of the places where Trump is most out of line with public sentiment and opinion. His decision to pull out of Paris remains one of the polling low points of his whole cursed career. And so I think it's going to be a place where we're fighting hard over the next little while. But I think most of the action is past now in terms of at least the presidential primary. And I think the message more or less got through. Doesn't mean that we're not going to have to push them once, as we always say, November 4th is as important as November 3rd. We're going to have to push them hard, but we're in a position to do it, I think, forward.
So then just a parting thought, do you have any other advice for us as health professionals trying to be as useful a part of the climate movement as possible?
Yes, it just goes just back to what I was saying before. Do it in the guise of being health professionals. When you show up places, do it with a white coat on and a stethoscope around your neck, and be driving home the point that you're who we depend on in the final analysis, and so you'd like a little say in how things are going down, and keep reminding people that this isn't a political fight. It's a fight about chemistry and physics and biology. And that's, in the end, that's what it is. Yes, there's a fight going on between Democrats and Republicans and between industry and environmentalists and things. But the basic negotiation that's underway is between human beings and physics and chemistry. And it's not a negotiation, Right. I mean, doctors don't, it's not, no doctor, nurse ever looks at your cholesterol and says, well, yes, it's 400, but whatever. I mean, that's just how you are. And it's, it's like, no, that's too high. You can't do that and expect to live a healthy life. So you got to pay respect and get to work. And that's exactly where we are as a planet. We've
I
got
like that. That's a new analogy.
too much carbon in the atmosphere, you know.
Your
And
cholesterol and our carbon is too high.
exactly right. And the other thing to point out is that if your doctor or your nurse tells you that your cholesterol is too high, only a complete idiot goes home and gets on the internet and tries to find a website that says cholesterol doesn't exist, you know. Um, um, it's like, this is a classic problem that models directly on what doctors do every single day.
Yeah.
So you should be well positioned to take that idea and drive it home. And that's
Wonderful.
how you'll be most effective in your role as medical professionals, in reminding everyone that that's what we have to do.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Thank you all so much for what you're doing, and just we'll be in close touch to just keep strategizing and working going forward, but just know that it really matters, and
Wonderful.
real gratitude from all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bill.
You have given us a gift.
We
So
will
thank
be in touch. Thank you. For everyone else,
All right.
if you're able to stay on, I'm going to pause the recording and restart it in a second, and we'll continue with our usual meeting.
All
Bill,
right.
thanks so
I'm
much.
off. You stay safe, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
so.
Bye.
Bill.
Bye.
Bye.
Fabulous. It was like
Good.
listening to somebody read an op-ed, just
Yes.
completely
Yes.
extemporaneous.
Well, that was a coup getting him. That was terrific.
Wow.
We owe Ashley. Ashley is neighbor, and Ashley persevered and made that happen. Thank you,
That's
Ashley.
great. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
You know, and I have
So-
to give a shout out to Todd Sack and whoever else was behind the AMA divestment, because that's going to be such a powerful tool for us going
Yeah.
forward. So thanks so much, Todd.
Exactly. So I'm going to try to start reading again, and let's go around and say hi. There's a lot of us today, so let's be mindful of sharing the space and time. If you could share your name, where you're practicing, and we might leave it at that for now.
And then also just a reminder, if you're not talking, let's try to just keep yourself muted just to prevent the background noise.
And I'll go ahead and call on people because I hate
Okay.
when it's awkward and silent. So Tom, you're next. Tom Newman.
Oh, hi. Tom Newman from UCSF and SF Bay Area PSR.
Mike Martin, op-ed, rocked it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a physician on the clinical faculty at UCSF and on the board of PSR, Physicians for Social Responsibility, and the treasurer of that group, and helped start a Physicians Against Red Meat. So on that effort as well.
Yeah, and Mike Martin just had an op-ed in the SF Chronicle about the coronavirus and Trump's fumbling. So it's worth a good
And
read.
actually, before everyone was on, we pasted a link to the op-ed at the very top of the chat if anyone wants to take a look at it.
Cynthia?
Hi, Cynthia Mahoney. I'm a retired nephrologist. I'm in the East Bay.
And co-founder of Climate Health Now. And Brian Grady?
Hi, Brian Grady. I'm a urologist in San Francisco, and I'm the current president of the San Francisco Marin Medical Society.
Glad to have you. Sandy? I'm gonna say hi. Emerson?
Oh, I'm Sandy Emerson from Fossil Free California, and we run divestment campaigns. I'm currently the board president, and we run campaigns targeting the state pension funds, local pension funds, and individuals. So we're here as a resource.
Wonderful, thank you. Jeff Mann? You're on mute.
There, just unmuted. Hi, Jeff Mann. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I work in Oakland and Berkeley. I live in Contra Costa County, and we just started a 350 Contra Costa chapter here. So if there's anybody from Contra Costa who wants to join us, please contact me.
Cool. Great. Margie?
Hi, I'm Margie Chan. I'm a retired OBGYN, I guess emeritus clinical professor at UCSF, and trying to make a difference.
Yeah, great. How about Bruce? You're on mute, by the way. I'll give you a second to unmute yourself and come back to you, Bruce. Robin, you want to say hi?
I'm Robin Cooper. I'm a psychiatrist in San Francisco. I'm co-founder of Climate Psychiatry Alliance and also author of the divestment plan that we used Todd's model for the American Psychiatric Association and successfully passed that.
Awesome. Woohoo. High five. Anne Harvey.
Hi, I'm a retired family doctor, worked in Contra Costa, and I'm active with No Colon Oakland and a few other organizations.
Great, thanks for joining. How about Bonnie Hamilton?
Hi, I'm a retired pediatrician in Fairfield, and I lead a climate policy action team in the county through the Climate Reality Project, Al Gore's group.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan Penner. I'm a nurse. I teach at the University of San Francisco, teach nursing students, and I'm also a member of 1,000 Grandmothers for Future Generations. So, nice to see you.
Thanks for joining. How about, do you go by Will or William Pevick? Do you want to say hi? You're on mute. We'll give you a second to unmute yourself and come back. How about Todd?
Yeah, my name is Todd Sack. I'm a gastroenterologist. I'm part-time in Jacksonville, Florida, and part-time in San Francisco. I try to advocate at large medical groups like the AMA, and I'm happy to support any of your groups if you want some advice to get going. I'm on the board of PSR in Washington and Florida, active in PSR in San Francisco, and I run My Green Doctor for 12 medical societies, an environmental sustainability service for doctors' offices used in 59 countries now.
Awesome. We have a lot to learn from you. Thanks for joining. Lee, do you want to share next?
Sure. Lee Balance, retired from Kaiser Permanente, member of the Citizens Climate Lobby Health Action Team.
How about Meg?
Oh, hi. I'm Meg Whitman. First of all, I am very regretful. I totally missed Bill McKibben, so sorry about
We
that.
recorded it. Don't worry.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah,
I wanted to talk to him.
We'll post it.
Yeah.
I'm a Middlebury alum, so I was really excited. But I'm an internist near Sacramento right now. I'm not currently working. I'm a stay-at-home mom to a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old, both very active little boys. But I've known Ashley since 2002, and she inspired me to join. And after the campfires, I realized everything is different, and that was my awakening. So I'm happy to be here with all of you very experienced people.
Great. And Karina.
Hi, I'm Karina Mayer. I'm a pediatrician. I live near Los Angeles, and I was with Kaiser Permanente Southern California for 18 years, and I resigned last year to do more of this sort of work.
Oh, great. I can't remember how we just met through CMA, so that's great. We awesome. Right. And Navami.
Hi, my name is Navami. I'm a current undergrad at Stanford, involved in a lot of the SMS greening the Stanford Hospital project, and now working with Ashley to help with Climate Health Now. So super excited.
Yeah, wonderful. Who else? Okay, if you're on the, if you've called in, oh no, sorry, Trisha, you want to share?
I'm a pediatrician, and I'm with the Chapter 2 of the California, the Academy of Pediatrics. We represent 7 counties in Southern California. It's our new climate change group.
Are you in LA, Trisha?
Yeah, I'm in Santa Monica.
Okay, great. Okay. So Will, you're off mute. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Maybe the volume's down.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Bill, can you? I think actually, Bill Pevick, can you hear us? I unmuted him, but that may not have worked. Alrighty. Well,
I
Bill,
think maybe try the volume on his phone.
In the meantime, so if you've called in, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'll start. Go ahead. I'll start. My name's Donna Staten. I'm a retired pediatrician from the Boston area, transplanted to Los Altos Hills near Stanford. I have a background in public health and global health, and now turning my efforts to Greentown, Los Altos, locally here.
Okay, great. I just added you to your channel of our Slack, Donna.
Thanks.
Anybody else who's called in want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name's Kathy Burke. Until this year, I was the Deputy Director of Global Health at Stanford, and this year I am a DCI Fellow, spending the year looking at climate and health. Been working on the greening hospitals effort at Stanford, as well as just trying to learn more.
Wonderful. Glad to have you.
Hi, I'm Wendy Rain. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm from the far north up in Humboldt County. I'm a retired family doc, and I founded a group called Climate 911 of health professionals across the country. And I also produce a radio show, which is on 40 stations across the country, called Cool Solutions, about community level climate solutions, which has a lot of help raising up the health benefits. So
Awesome.
and it's a podcast, lots of great information on there.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Could you say that again, please? Just how I can find it?
Oh, you can find it on any podcast.
Okay.
Any podcast app. It's called Cool Solutions.
Thanks. Okay.
This is Amanda for a second. I'm gonna just post a link to it in the chat right now.
Hi, my name's Susan. I'm an RN at El Camino Hospital, and I recently became involved with the Silicon Valley Climate Action Now. We've been protesting in front of Wells Fargo banks to divest for a couple of years now, and we've become quite active until the coronavirus has made us stay home.
Right. What's your last name, Susan?
Steinbrecher.
Oh yeah. Okay. I remember. Okay. Great. Thanks for joining.
You're
Who
welcome.
else is called in?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Rebecca Brumley-Dolfano. I'm a first-year medical student at Stanford, and I'm one of the people leading our climate and health group there. I've not been on one of these calls yet, but I'm very grateful to be able to listen in and learn from you all.
Great. Okay, great. Yeah, we want to connect with you also about our divestment campaign. Who else who has called in hasn't introduced yourself yet?
Hi, this is Hannah. I'm a nurse practitioner, a pediatric nurse practitioner student at UCSF, and I'm not yet on the Slack channel, and I will do that before the end of the week.
Yeah, we'll help you. Great. Good. Who else?
My name is Ellen Aslan. I'm a third-year medical student from UC Davis, also one of the students recruited by Ashley from CMA and AMA.
Nice. And we're totally making strides in CMA. Good job. Thanks for joining. Who else?
I think I saw Ode on the, Ode, are you still on? Oh, no, okay, she may have gotten off.
Has everybody introduced themselves? Okay, if not, you can pipe up.
This is Bruce Burdick.
Oh, great, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a retired TPMG physician, and I'm interested if anyone wants to meet or have a Zoom meeting with the California Surgeon General about an informed consent to contribute to global warming.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a call about that, the idea of informed consent for the greenhouse gas emissions of different health like procedures and things. So if that interests you, I can put you in contact with Bruce. Great. Okay, full house. So glad you're with us. It is obviously unprecedented moment, and so we really appreciate you, joining despite all the demands on everybody's time and all the shifts. So my name's Ashley McClure, and I'm one of the co-founders of Climate Health Now, and really appreciate you being here. So we wanted to, these monthly calls are in part to kind of bring on new people, and I know we have a lot of people who've already joined calls before, so I think I might, Amanda, should I skip like the mission and vision?
I think it's up to you. I'll give myself a brief intro as well. Hi, everyone. I know you've also been hearing my voice intermittently. I'm Amanda Milstein. I'm a primary care pediatrician in Richmond and one of the co-founders of Climate Health Now with Ashley. And again, thank you guys for being here. These are, you don't need me to say it, but obviously very wild and unprecedented times. And I know for many of us, we are also dealing with upheaval in our clinical lives. So this is especially profound that we're all on this call together. So thank you. Does anyone want an I think we can kind of follow the lead. Usually we've sort of gone through what Climate Health Now is and what we're trying to do, but we do have many familiar faces on the call. Does anyone want us to go over that, or what's sort of the sentiment?
Maybe I'll just read it and go quickly through it.
Okay.
Okay, so our mission, just to stay anchored in that, is we're a group of health professionals in California, but we have friends across the country who recognize climate change as the larger public health and equity emergency of our lifetimes. And we're working to mobilize the trusted voice, like Bill said, of health professionals to advocate for rapid, just transition off fossil fuels towards a healthy, equitable society sustained by renewable energy. And the way we're doing that is by building a network that you are a critical part of interconnected health professionals who can mobilize together and who are activated on climate advocacy. And in this moment that nobody saw coming, there's, like Bill mentioned also, there's all these kind of connections of the health professionals' voice really being more appreciated than ever in most circles. And now the kind of need for COVID economic relief. And so I just want to bring up that there's two things that we've come across that really, we think kind of bring together both the climate, the long-term climate work and then the immediate COVID response. And I don't know if you may have already heard of both of these, but so there's something called the People's Bailout, which is a well-organized, I just put it, oh, that's not the link. I'll put the link in the chat, but it's a kind of an articulation of the need for current response to address the longer term challenges that we're all facing. So I am posting it there. And that, is kind of the way that we're starting to see how to fold in our longer term work into the current response. And then the other thing, just they want to kind of put on everybody's radar, is about the 5 principles for just COVID relief. And those are part of the People's Bailout, but it really does dovetail well into our longer term climate work, with health being kind of the central priority. So let's see, I think I can post those. So we're, all navigating this together on the fly, but we really do see this being a way to kind of catalyze our longer term work. So moving from that to, should we talk about FLAC now or straight about divestment, Amanda?
I think
we should talk about FLAC.
Yeah. And Ashley, if you feel, do you want me to jump in and talk about Slack? Okay. And then I know I'm seeing some messages in the chat. Robin, I just want to acknowledge what you just sent to me as well, and I think we'll get to that because I think there is we want to talk about divestment, and I think, I don't know if we're going to have, if this call is the right place to do it or if we need to take this discussion to Slack, but a discussion of really what are sort of role is right now in light of what's going on with COVID, what we know is going on with climate. And I think, you know, Bill McKibben couldn't have phrased it better, that this is more than ever, our voices matter and are trusted, and people are looking to us to, you know, provide guidance, and how can we use this moment to share out the messages that we know we need to get shared out. So Robin, Robin had asked a question that I think is probably on many people's minds about wildfire preparation in light of COVID-19, and that obviously relates back to climate change. And I don't think we'll have time probably to answer that or talk about that specific question, but I think, Robin, the essence of that is I certainly appreciate and understand. So sorry, just a very quick background on Slack. So we have chosen, rather than having everyone try to deal with, you know, flooding of their I keep saying inboxes, inboxes with email, and trying to do things that way, we've chosen to use Slack as our communication platform. So if everyone on this call should have an invitation to Slack or already be up and running on Slack. For the health professionals who are on the call, or the health students, if you're not, please reach out to myself or Ashley or Cynthia Mahoney after the call and let us know if you're having issues, or if you for some reason haven't gotten an invitation. We identify Slack as imperfect, but it has really worked very well for us, and we hope that people will come around to at least like it, if not love it. The way that we have it organized is basically by, so Slack is organized by channel. We have different channels based on geographic location and then also topic area. So for the idea being that we are organized based on where we live. So we have a majority of us right now in Northern California, but we are increasing by the day in terms of people who are living in and around the LA area, around San Diego. So we've created channels that all of those hubs can use to communicate about things that are specific to their geographic location, and then also topic areas such as medical education, things like people who are interested in CME, education of patients, that sort of topical divestments, those sorts of things. So we're not going to go over the details of Slack right now, but if you have specific questions or having any issues with it, myself, Cynthia, or Ashley are the point people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what will carry us forward for our, you know, ongoing campaigns and work together. So perfect. So then
I mentioned one thing, which is if people could go in and fill out the Google form, that gives us their information about where you're located and what you do, then that will help us to organize and make sure people are in the right channel and can communicate with each other.
I'm going to post the link to that as well in the chat right now. If you haven't already filled this out, please do. This is only shared with our leadership. It's not going anywhere else, but it's basically to help us better understand who you are and how we can organize effectively. So that's the link to the Google Doc.
Perfect. And then just kind of briefly reviewing the past month since our last call. So Cynthia Mahoney led a kind of group of us up at the State of the States, which actually happened on our last call. So we just want to say thank you to Cynthia. Who else was with you, Cynthia? You might be on mute. You're on mute. Ah, mute.
Sorry, Linda Rudolph was there, and Barbara Sattler from Annie, our colleagues and allies there, and another nurse whose name I've forgotten. And then Meg was able to join us, and Benjamin Liu from UC Davis.
Nice.
And let's see, I'm blocking on her name. Just a minute. From Richmond. Let me go back.
Ann Harvey. Was it Ann Harvey?
Sorry.
Yeah.
And maybe there was one other person. So we had a nice showing, all in our white coats, carrying our signs. And I think people really appreciated seeing that support.
Great. Yeah, thank you for organizing that. And then we also had another amazing educational speaker, Leanne Hill from physicians and scientists for healthy energy who did an educational call with us about the health impacts of fossil fuel extraction. And we recorded that, and we'll actually, I am in the process of getting that posted to one of our other wins for the past month, which is we have a YouTube channel. So that it would be really cool.
Oh, you just
So
froze.
you just froze.
Oh, did I? Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
So we have a YouTube channel, and I'm going to try to put that in the chat. And if you could go to YouTube and subscribe to our Climate Health Now channel, that'll be a hopefully a useful way to kind of get updates and videos that we are going to start recording. And then other wins. Let's see.
I can talk a little bit about the AB 345, the pre-rulemaking hearings.
That'd be great.
Unfortunately, I say much of life, this has been sort of a lot of this has been upended by COVID moving forward. But what Ashley was mentioning, the educational call with Leanne Hill, was in preparation for speaking as health professionals about the negative impacts of oil and gas extraction at the state meetings, where they're basically eliciting community input about oil and gas setbacks, which is related to AB 345. This is basically the rulemaking piece of AB 345, which is the oil and gas setbacks legislation. The majority of the meetings have been postponed throughout the state because of COVID. We in Oakland got ours in on the 9th, which was probably the last day that it could have happened before it would have definitely been canceled because of COVID. We had about 12 to 14 medical professionals there in white coats with our stethoscopes. I think we were effective and appreciated by the people who, it was a lot of environmental justice and community members who came out and spoke about the oil and gas drilling that is in their communities, and oftentimes next to their houses and where their kids live and go to school. So I think it was an effective thing. The next thing we're trying to do, especially in light of the fact that these hearings have really been stalled out, we did have an opportunity to meet in person Uduak Joe Natuk, who is the new commissioner of CalGEM. He was appointed in November by Governor Newsom. And we're now trying to at least set up a Zoom meeting with him so that we can at least continue to try to forge that relationship. For those of you guys who weren't there, he has a background in the oil and gas industry and a degree in petroleum extraction. But he also spoke when he introduced himself about having done one of Al Gore's climate reality trainings. And he also has young children, both of which make it seem that he is somebody who is really important for us to foster a relationship with, and potentially who is more open to acting on what we know to be the negative health consequences of oil and gas extraction. So that's something that we're still really working on. If that's something that you haven't been involved with but are interested in, please message any of us, and we can try to connect you in. And if you haven't already, I posted earlier, I can repost this. The CalGEM, which is the state agency that runs oil and gas extraction, is asking for emails or letters as well from anyone in the state to comment on the need for oil and gas setbacks or the lack thereof. And I can repost that again. It is in Slack, how to submit an email, which presumably would make some sort of a difference.
Yeah, great.
Just quick addition to that. So some of us who went to that hearing then submitted letters that were a little more detailed than what we were able to say in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And have you gotten any of those, Amanda? Can you post some sample letters or where to look at them?
Some people have sent them to me. I'd have to get their permission as to whether they're okay with me sending them out. I can certainly ask that. We have a sample letter as well. I can repost that later today. There's also, again, prior to COVID-19, this was much more moving ahead actively, and now we'll have to see what happens, but we're working on, with some of our allies throughout the state, PSR LA and the Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environment, on a letter that would be a sign-on letter basically from health professionals throughout the state to CalGEM, which I think would carry a lot of weight if we could get a lot of signers, especially from these large organizations that have a lot of history in the state and pre-existing. I will certainly keep everyone posted about that as well. We're seeing how we can move that forward right now as well.
Yeah.
But
Great.
yes, I can share out at least a sample of something you could email.
Okay, cool. So we'll follow up with that. And then the other thing, so the CMA, we're working to make climate change a major issue for them to grapple with at this year's House of Delegates, the major conference. And we have a letter of support for that, for making it a major issue. And we have over 162 signers now. And I'm actually, right now, I just posted a link to it. So if you would consider reading it and signing your support, you don't have to be a CMA member, just a health professional, I think is sufficient. So it'd be great to have you add your name. I think it's seeming likely, and actually Dr. Grady here is gonna continue to help us with that in District 8, which is Marin and San Francisco. And then I think next, oh yeah, and then Amanda, do you want to share about how to link the calendar, Google Calendar in Slack?
Sure. I haven't thought about that for a few days here. So we created, I created a shared Google Calendar that is tracking major things that are going on that we are aware of, either that Climate Health Now is organizing or that is, are being organized by other people that we think, or that people who are part of our community want people to know about. Again, not a lot of these things are likely to happen right now, and certainly anything that's in person. There is a link to the shared Google Calendar. So I posted it in the general channel of Slack. So if you search back for calendar, it should come up. But at the top, if you're in Slack, in the general channel, which that's the one channel that everyone is subscribed to, if you look at the very top in your under where it says hashtag general, it tells you how many people are in the channel, and then there is a link to the CHN calendar. So you can always click there and find it. And it's a public calendar, so everyone should be able to see it. It may be a different color depending on how your Google Calendar is set up. I won't go into more detail than that. If you're having specific problems with it, let me know and I can try to help you troubleshoot. But the idea is basically just a place where we can keep track of everything that's going on. And I think this will be more useful, potentially in our post-COVID world, but
yeah,
we certainly will keep updating it.
Yeah. And then next, so we're gonna, those were kind of a lot of updates. And then now I'm gonna turn our focus to the reason we invited Bill McKibben to join. So the campaign that we're working on, which thankfully lends itself to virtual work, which is launching a divestment campaign led by health professionals for our institutions to divest. And I think, like Bill McKibben articulated, really our institutional pressure, getting Stanford, getting Kaiser, getting Harvard to divest is where we're going to focus our energy. Yes, we should all individually also, but the social implications of our healthcare institutions is really what our next kind of campaign is about. So I'm going to do my best to share my screen and kind of just give a brief overview of what we're starting to work on. So like I said, it's calling for our healthcare institutions and really using our leverage as the healers of society to say that fossil fuel divestment is about health. And I really like this graphic because it shows that it's not just about extraction, it's not just about divesting from things like fossil fuels and also tobacco. You know, most healthcare institutions, I think, have divested from tobacco for the obvious kind of conflict of interest. So the idea is to divest from things that are at odds with our morals and values, to then use our values, you know, our institutional mission statements, our Hippocratic oath, to use those values to determine what we do invest our money in, and then to appropriately, you know, from those values, invest in what aligns with our mission. And so the obvious, what everybody on this call realizes, that climate change is a bigger public health crisis, and there's an ethical conflict for our institutions to be investing what's making our communities sick. So that's what our divestment campaign is really anchored on. And I really liked how Bill McKibben said, you know, what we bring to the climate movement is our professional leverage. So here we are, our trusted medical community voice, that's our lever. And the value that we're working on is protecting human health and safety. And so removing the social license of fossil fuels and kind of articulating that we need to transition from them, that's what our divestment campaign is all about, is kind of taking away that license to operate for fossil fuels. And don't need to talk about this. Not gonna talk about that. So we're not alone. The British Medical Journal just last month launched their international Investing in Humanity divestment campaign, which is fantastic, but it's international. And there isn't a way for us to kind of capture the US signers of their campaign. So what we're basically doing is creating that, but US specific, the same divestment campaign, but just kind of anchored here. So that's what we're looking at though. And one of the tools that were kind of the really great resources is a website called divestinvest.org. And it has a lot of tools for us to use. And then what we're going to be doing is kind of customizing that for the health voice, healthcare institutions. But you know, we're not creating these wheels. We're just sort of customizing it for our particular voice and our particular sector. So the three kind of pillars of the call to divest and invest that they stand on are the moral imperative, which for us is, you know, a really powerful kind of angle to pull it on. Then that it's financially, because fossil fuels are a dying industry, and they're going to have an unbelievable amount of stranded assets in order, you know, they can't burn all of their assets because it's not compatible with life as we know it. And then the legal duty, which pulls in the kind of the fiduciary duty, which usually when we talk about fiduciary duties, it's that for the next quarter's profits, that kind of finances are managed in a way that always has the next quarter's financial profits as the main motivation. But actually, fiduciary duty actually there's a bigger definition, which is having the best interest of the shareholders at heart. And what we see our opportunity being is to expand the notion of a fiduciary duty so that it's not just about the next quarter's benefits, but it's about the next decade and, you know, and beyond. So that's what we're trying to kind of bring to this conversation of divest and invest, is that what's in everybody's interest is obviously to transition off of fossil fuels, and that's what our campaign is going to be about. So the campaign started about 15 years ago or so, heavily led by students. And the kind of estimates are that already $14 trillion in the world have been divested from fossil fuels. And over here on the right, hopefully you can see, is kind of the makeup of the institutions who have already divested, 30% of which being faith-based organizations. 1% is healthcare, which is ridiculous. So that seems like an opportunity, and that's the opportunity that we're seizing with a divestment campaign for our healthcare institutions, because we're the only, as this graphic from Healthcare Without Harm shows, can you guys see that? We're the only sector with healing as a mission. So we really should, I think, be leading divestment because of the health implications of continuing to invest in fossil fuels. So I'm gonna skip that. So like Bill articulated, and our focus is gonna be institutions. And this is from the Divest Invest website. And I like it because they just break it down into the steps. So the steps are reviewing investment beliefs, establishing exclusion and inclusion criteria based on our beliefs and ethics and values. And I can say that I know Kaiser Permanente, which is where I work, we already have explicit exclusion criteria for tobacco and retail firearms. So there are precedents in most of our institutions for excluding things that are at odds with our mission and values, and that's what we're working to expand. The next step is obviously to review investment policies and then to update our risk register. I don't even totally know what that means. But basically there are steps that we're going to learn about together, and we're going to have allies like Sandy Emerson, who's with us from Fossil Free California, because we have many allies to learn from about the divestment campaigns and investment campaigns. But what we're doing is bringing it to our own sector.
And sorry, Ashley, this is Amanda. Can I just jump in and say one thing here? Yeah. That I think is something that's been helpful to me as I've started to think about this, is our job. I mean, we are, well, I can only speak for myself, but I'm assuming most of us are not financial experts in any way, right? We are medical providers, public health professionals, and I don't think that our job is to become financial experts, right? I mean, there are people whose that is their job and that is their profession. Our job is to make sure that people understand that investing in fossil fuels is going to kill us, right? I mean, that is the bottom line, that this is about health. So I think, because Ashley, when you had made the comment that you don't, some of a lot of these terms that get used are certainly new to me, probably are new to many of us. But I think to think that we have to all of a sudden learn an entirely new field is actually not the right way to think about it. It's thinking about how we can effectively communicate what we need to communicate to the people who have this other set of knowledge and are making these financial decisions. That I think that's an important framework to keep in mind, is that we are not, nor do I think need to become financial experts in any way. I think that's helpful.
Exactly. So we know about the health. We know that continuing to burn fossil fuels, business as usual, is at odds with protecting health. And we're just using divestment as a leverage to articulate that message. So yeah, we don't need to become experts, but we do need to improve our literacy to some degree and our messaging. So I think I'll leave it at that. We'll follow up with some documents, and we have just kind of a really like a 1.5-page description of this divestment campaign that we're kicking off. we're going to kick it off virtually on Earth Day, being the 50th Earth Day anniversary, which all these amazing plans are just, you know, in limbo. But we can do this virtually. We'll use social media, and we will communicate it as best as we can with the changing circumstances. But the goal is, again, to target the 3 institutions to start with, being Harvard, Stanford, and Kaiser. And then the individual pieces are important too, but not the focus. And we're going to kick it off this year, really putting pressure on them because of the ethical, financial, and fiduciary reasons that we mentioned. So we have a description of this campaign that we'll share with you, and we'll kind of learn as we go, but we really do think this is a high yield use of our time, and thank goodness it lends itself to the virtual efforts.
And I see, and thank you, I see a lot of people who have shared either just with me in the chat or publicly that I know a lot of you guys have experience with the divestment campaigns. Thank you for, and a bunch of people shared, you need to look, you know, different resources to take a look at. Thank you. I think what we need to probably do, if this is something that speaks to you and you would like to be involved in, I think probably really using the divestment channel on Slack is where we will move a lot of this discussion. If you are not part of that channel already, please join it. Just very quickly, the way to join a channel if you're not already part of it is search for divestment. And you should see it come up as a channel, and it should give you an opportunity to join. If you have an issue with that, please let me know. But for everyone who just sent me a message saying, look at this, thank you, thank you, thank you, and let's use the Slack channel to get all of that in one place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're gonna start wrapping it up to finish on time at 10. So our next call is actually the week after Earth Day. So it's April 29th. So we will be kind of, you know, ramping up and organizing to prepare this launch through Slack between now and Earth Day. So, you know, if you're not already on Slack, let me or Amanda know. And then, Amanda, do you want to mention how to invite colleagues to Slack?
Sure. So we want any health professional, public health professional, health student, public health student to join us in whatever capacity they are interested. The best way to invite somebody to join us is to get them a Slack invitation. The way to do that is you can either message me or Ashley or Cynthia directly. Or email our Gmail address, which I'll post into the chat right now. It's climatehealthnow@gmail.com. And what we basically need is the name and title and email address of the person or people who you would like to invite. It would be icing on the cake if you can also tell us where they are geographically located. But really the most important things are our name and title, who they are, what type of student, what type of health professional, and their email address. So please spread the word.
Great. And then we have 2 action items that we would really, really love for everyone to do in the next couple of weeks, ideally. So the first one is actually to get out your smartphone over the next week or 2 and to record yourself in a 1 minute or so video saying your name, where you work, and that you're kind of part of this divestment campaign as a health professional. And we have a template that I recorded of Amanda. And if you can make sure to record it horizontally, that'd be great. And what we're doing is we're piggybacking on a campaign that Healthcare Without Harm is doing, they're collecting videos from health professionals across the country talking about what their plans are for Earth Day. And so what we would love is to have if we had 30 of these, videos talking about the divestment campaign for the healthcare institutions, then we can put those on Healthcare Without Harm's website, and they, through Practice Green Health, will help to amplify the message on Twitter and all the other social media outlets. And we'll also put it on our YouTube channel. And this will be the way that we're promoting the divestment campaign, and this will be the way that we start to really get some visibility, which is the whole point. So we'll share that. It doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of do your best, lo-fi, but just a minute of yourself. And if you could have something, you know, symbolizing your role as a health professional. Amanda had on her white coat. If you want to put a stethoscope around your neck, whatever it is, it's something just saying your name, why you're part of this divestment campaign. And then I think if you could email it to me, that would work. And we'll send you directions on how to do this in a little description, but that would be really, really valuable. And then the second action item to put out there is we have a template of a letter to send to your own healthcare institutions. So if whoever oversees, like you could, I don't know, I'm still trying to figure that out. So we have a letter that you could send to your own like 401k or 403b manager. But as Bill just said, really the focus should be institutions. So I'm actually going to scratch that, and we'll figure out.
Yeah, I think that's fair, actually. Yes, we will. Yeah, I mean, it's a good letter, but it seems like.
Yeah, not the highest yield.
Right.
Yeah. So we're going to stay high yield. So the video would be great, and then we'll get back to you on how we're going to kind of articulate all of our voices towards the institutions that we're trying to influence. And then if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll send a link for that. And then the last thing is, I do think it would be really valuable for everyone to check out the website called the People's Bailout. And it's a place that you can co-sign your name and put your credentials. And that's, you know, calling for a stimulus plan and any future relief packages that expand health protections, and really starts to pivot towards the kind of long-term solutions that we need, like, you know, Green New Deal type of investments. So if you could sign the People's Bailout, record a home video, and then make sure you're on Slack, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then stay tuned for how to join into the kind of institutional influence. I think that's about it.
Yeah, I would just to underscore two things. I think for anyone who is really interested in digging in on divestment, please reach out to us, because there's a lot to be done there, but I think we are at a really important and unique point right now. In some ways, COVID-19 has, maybe we can turn this into a blessing in terms of pushing this forward. So please reach out to us specifically. And then the other thing I wanted to just say before people get off is I got a few messages from people in CMA saying if you are not a CMA member, do not sign the letter. So if you put your name on that, they're not a CMA member, it will not carry as much weight apparently to CMA if we have non-CMA signers. So if you did that, please, and aren't, take your name off.
Okay. So yeah, any last announcements, thoughts?
I just want to thank all of you out there on the front lines. I'm sheltering in place, and it's nerve-wracking enough.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Amanda and Ashley, thank you.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, this is Karina.
Yes.
I wanted to say the same. Amanda and Ashley are so impressive, organized, really amazing. And my 2 cents is that I think it's so important, which Ashley mentioned in the slides with the divestment, that we're not always just anti this and anti that, but what are the options and alternatives, and how are they even better than what we're saying we are against? Because I think that turns a lot of people off who aren't in our same space.
I think
Yeah.
that's a really good point. The invest as opposed to just the divest.
Exactly. Yeah, Cynthia keeps reminding me of that. So that's right. We're going to show the solutions. So thank you all so much. We'll
Thank
wrap it
you.
up.
Thank you. Yeah.
We'll follow up
All
by
right.
email and
Stay well.
stay safe
Stay
and healthy.
home.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.